Okay. Okay. कैमरा आ रहा है. أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم الحمد لله رب العالمين والصلاة والسلام على سيدنا ونبينا وطبيب نفوسنا وحبيب قلوبنا أبي القاسم محمد اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد وعلى أهل بيته الطيبين الطاهرين المعصومين لا سيما بقية الله روحي وأرواح العالمين لتراب مقدمه الفداء الحمد لله الذي هدانا لهذا وما كنا لنهتدي لولا أن هدانا الله رب اشرح لي صدري ويسر لي أمري واحلل عقدة من لساني يفقهوا قولي. Inshallah, today we are going to be starting on a new topic in fiqh, which is going to be the book of Salat. We have completed to an extent the book of Tahara. There are certain topics which we have not covered. Inshallah, in the future we will cover them, such as the section relating to mutahirat. But we have covered the section on wudu, so it is only logical that now we start our topic of Salat. The book of Salat is going to be quite a long series of lectures. And we are going to be spending a few weeks on the various ahkam relating to Salat. Because as we know that Salat is one of the the most important obligatory action that is required for a Muslim. And therefore, it is important that we understand all the various different ahkam of Salat, so that we are able to perform this obligation correctly. So inshallah, for the next 35 minutes, we'll spend some time starting on some of the preliminary rulings relating to Salat. My source for this lecture series is the book called Minhaj al-Salihin, which is the Arabic treatise of laws by Ayatollah Sistani. And we are going to be using that book in terms of its sections to go through the various different rulings. Just waiting for the presentation to be set. And then in the last 15 minutes, we're going to, inshallah, have a quiz. As I had announced, we'll have a quiz around 30 questions on Slido, which is going to cover topics of what we have covered so far, like taqleed, wudu, and yeah, it's mainly going to be taqleed and wudu. We will not do najasat today. Inshallah, we'll do najasat next time. But there's going to be 30 questions, 30 seconds each, which will take us 15 minutes. And then inshallah, we will see who comes out the best. Okay. So in the book of Salat, according to Minhaj al-Salihin, starts with the obligatory prayers. So there are certain prayers that are obligatory in Islam, and there are certain prayers that are recommended. So in the time of the occultation of the Imam of our time, Allah has his reappearance, the obligatory prayers that we have are 5. They are the Salatul Yawmiyah, or what you call the daily prayers, which includes the Friday prayer as well, which will be explained later on. The obligatory prayer of Tawaf, which is performed during Umrah or Hajj. The prayer of signs, or what you call the Salatul Ayat. The funeral prayer, Salatul Mayyat, which has been explained, but we haven't explained it in detail. Inshallah, we'll discuss it in the future, how that is performed. And any prayer that is pledged through a vow or something similar or contracted. What that means is that all of these salat are basically wajib on an individual, Obviously, the funeral prayer is wajib in the sense that it is wajib ul kifai, meaning that it is wajib for the entire society to perform the funeral prayers of a deceased. But if any one person performs it, then it is not wajib anymore on the rest, just like at-taqleed or ijtihad. But the daily prayers, the salatul ayat, the salat of tawaf, and any prayer that you need to perform. So let's say you do a vow, another with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. You say that, oh Allah, that if you are able to fulfill this hajat of mine, then I'm going to pray certain salats. Then due to that nazar, due to that vow, that salat becomes obligatory upon you. Similarly, if you ask someone to perform salat on the behalf of, let's say, your deceased parents, and there's now a contract that you've signed with them, as soon as that person signs the contract to perform the salat, it becomes wajib on that person to pray for the deceased. So these are the obligatory prayers that need to be performed. And then additionally, there is the missed prayer of the father, which based on obligatory precaution must be performed by the eldest son, and we'll provide the details of that later on. What does that mean? That means that if the father has passed away and he has got certain qada salats, they need to be performed by the eldest son. Either he performs them or he contracts the performance of the salat to someone else. But it is responsibility of according to the obligatory precaution, it is the responsibility of the eldest son. So it becomes the responsibility of the son to make sure that the qada salat of his father had been performed, whether by himself or by someone else. The daily prayers, as we all know, but it's good to remember them, are 5. They are the Fajr prayer, which has 2 units, or Raq'ah. We have the Dhuhr prayer, which has 4 units, or its equivalent Friday prayer, which is 2 units. What that means is that on the day of Friday, if you decide to perform the Friday prayer, you do not need to perform the Dhuhr prayer, right? On Zoom. Let's do it now. What about now? Okay, all right. So the daily prayers are 5. It's the Fajr prayer, the Dhuhr prayer, the Asr prayer, which is also 4 units, the Maghrib prayer, which is 3 units, and the Isha prayer, which is 4 units. The 4-unit prayer, Dhuhr, Asr, and Isha, are shortened to 2 units during travel or in fear under specific conditions. So this is what you call the Salat of Safar, right? When you're traveling, you are allowed, or you have to, in fact, not allowed, but it is obligatory upon you to reduce the 4-unit prayers to 2-unit prayers, but the Fajr prayer and the Maghrib prayer remain as 2 and 3 units. And we'll inshallah get to the rules of Friday prayers in the future lessons, but it depends. So what the ruling is that for a Friday prayer, the ruling you have to follow, or the niyyah you have to follow, is takhiri, meaning that it is your option that you are deciding to pray the Friday prayer as wajib. So, but whether you decide to pray as wajib or not, it is as soon as you do a Friday prayer in Jama'ah, you do not have to pray the whole prayer, whether it's wajib or not, because you're praying it with the wajib, with the intention of that it is an option in the time of the occultation. I have an option to pray Friday or Zuhr prayer. If you decide to pray Friday prayer in Jama'ah, then you don't have to pray Zuhr prayer. But there are specific rulings relating to that, inshallah, that will come to it. Okay, what else is there? Now, there are also a lot of optional prayers, or what you call nawafil prayers, right? That are recommended to be performed. And the optional prayers are basically 8 units before Dhuhr, 8 units before Asr, 4 units after Maghrib, 2 units sitting, which count as 1 unit after Isha, and 8 units of the night prayer, which is known as Salatul Layl, of which what you call Salatul Nafila, 2 units of Shaf prayer that you perform after the 8 rakah, and the 1 unit of Watr, or Witr, after the Shaf. So if you combine all of these recommended prayers, including the Salatul Layl, which is 11 rakah, and you add the daily obligatory rakah, which is how many? 17. You get to the number of 51. And that is a number that our Imam Hassan al-Askari has mentioned in his hadith, that the signs of a mu'min are, one of them is that he recites 51 rakah prayer. What that means is that you recite all the obligatory prayers and you recite all the optional prayers that are mentioned in here. And 2 units of Fajr before the obligatory Fajr prayer also. So 2, 8, 8, 4 plus 2 plus 11 plus 17 gives you 51. Okay. The time of the Friday prayer starts at the beginning of midday, which is known as Zawal on Friday. All of this that I'm explaining right now is just a summary. Each of these points are going to be explained in a lot more detail in the future, inshallah. The time for Zuhr and Asr prayers lasts from midday, which is Zawal. What is Zawal? Zawal is basically the time where the sun has reached the highest point, and now it will start to decline. That is the time of Zawal. And until sunset is the time for Zuhr and Asr prayer. Now, within that time, Zuhr occupies the early point of the day and the Asr occupies the later part of the day. But the whole time between Zawal and sunset is shared by Zuhr and Asr. Meaning that any time from Zuhr, any time from Zawal until sunset, I can pray these two salat together. They don't, Zuhr doesn't become qada as soon as I pray my Asr prayer. Or there is no specific time for Asr. So this is what you call, they share the time together. Zuhr and Asr share the time together. However, inshallah in the future we'll discuss what happens is that suppose now you're getting very close to sunset and you have delayed both your Zuhr and Asr prayers. And now you only have time to perform one namaz. You only can perform Asr and you have to perform Zuhr as qada. Because that part is specific for Asr now. Even though you can perform both, but suppose that you've delayed your prayers all the way until there's literally 3 minutes left before sunset. What do you decide, Zuhr or Asr? You have to pray Asr, and Zuhr becomes qada. Similarly, for Maghrib and Isha, they both share the time together from sunset until midnight. What is midnight? Midnight is not 12 o'clock. Midnight is the half between sunset and sunrise. So that may be different. It may be 11:30, it may be 11:45. It depends on the time of the year. So on normal circumstances, the time for Maghrib and Isha is from sunset until midnight. Again, same as Zuhr and Asr, Maghrib occupies the early part and Isha occupies the last part. What does that mean? Again, if you delay both the prayers and now you only have time for one prayer, you have to pray Isha and Maghrib becomes qada. But what happens that there is a situation where you are unable to perform Maghrib and Isha until midday? Due to either you slept or you forgot or for whatever any other urgent reason, you are able to extend the time from Maghrib, from sunset all the way to dawn. Meaning that it is not stopping at midnight. You can pray even until dawn. But the problem is that if you pray until dawn, and if you pray any time from midnight until dawn, your niyyah cannot be a niyyah of ada. It's neither qada or ada. You don't say either of them. You just pray your Maghrib and Isha and you don't utter the niyyah of ada or qada. So as an obligatory precaution, as you can see here, someone who deliberately delays the prayers until midnight should perform them before dawn without the intention of qada or ada. This is for someone who intentionally delays them. It doesn't mean that if I've intentionally delayed and I don't pray until midnight and I have no excuse, I can still pray after midnight. It doesn't become qada, but it is not ada either. Because usually what is the niyyah that you do? You say that, I pray 4 rakah namaz, I do ada. Ada means I perform. Qada means you make up. So I do ada of 4 rakah of namaz of salatul zuhr, wajib qurbatan ilallah, right? In that niyyah, I have to state or in my mind have the niyyah that I'm doing ada of this prayer. When you delay the prayer until midnight, after midnight, you cannot say that I'm doing it as ada. So if the time is tight, they should perform Isha and then make up for Maghrib as a precaution afterwards. The time for Fajr prayer is from the true dawn until sunrise. Okay. Now, inshallah, in the next section, I want to just briefly discuss what does it mean in terms of true dawn. How do we determine what is the time of Fajr prayer? Okay, nowadays it's easy because we have our apps. Our apps tell us. But how do our apps, especially from a school of Ahlul Bayt perspective, how do we decide what is the time of Fajr prayer? So here is a slide that explains it to you. So There are three types of twilights. There's civil twilight, there's nautical twilight, and there's astronomical twilight, right? Real Fajr, or what you call Fajr Sadiq, the real twilight or the real Fajr, is astronomical twilight. What does that mean? So in astronomy, twilight period is divided into civil, nautical, and astronomical, corresponding to solar depressions of 6, 12, and 18 degrees below the horizon. And I'll explain this to you. So you see this, right? This is the horizon here, right? This is the horizon. Fajr prayer does not start when the sun starts to rise above the horizon. No. But there are times where in the morning you will see that there's light that's coming, right, from the horizon, even though the sun hasn't risen. So what happens is that if your sun, the middle part of the sun, is below the horizon, right, but it is between 12 and 18 degrees. Yeah. So this part up to this part has to be between 12 to 18 degrees. That's the time of Fajr. So as soon as if it's more than 18 degrees, Fajr hasn't started. And if it's after 12 degrees, like if it's 5 degrees, then it has started. But the point of starting of Fajr is from between 12 and 18 degrees below the horizon. Now, what does that mean? Yeah. How would you know? Exactly. So nowadays it's easy. Suppose that you don't have an app that tells you the Fajr prayer right now. What you will do is you will go in any area that you are in, you go to Google and you write what is the astronomical twilight of this place. You will get the astronomical twilight. Because we know that we are following the astronomical twilight, which happens between 12 and 18. Civil twilight, nautical twilight is anything above 12 and 6, and civil is below 18. So if you don't know what that means, you go and you write astronomical twilight. What is the astronomical twilight time of this area that I'm in? If it says it's about 5 a.m., usually just for precaution, you just add a few minutes to it, and that's just time of Fajr prayer, if you don't know. So it's always important to know that if you don't have an app that tells you what the time of Fajr is, you just type astronomical morning twilight, and that will tell you the Fajr prayer, close to it. So the Islamic twilight for Fajr prayer is a few minutes after astronomical morning twilight. So to find out the time for the morning prayer of your local area, search on Google for morning astronomical twilight of your town. Then for precaution, add a few minutes to it, and that is the beginning time of your morning prayer. So suppose your app doesn't work, now you don't know, you're in a country where you don't know what the Fajr prayer time is, there's a way for you to find out. You don't have to look at the sun, you don't have to see. And the reason for that is because, according to us, there's two different types of light that comes when the day is about to start. There's a vertical light that comes through, it comes for a few seconds and it goes away. That's basically the nautical twilight. That's not Fajr. The Fajr is when you will start to see that there's a horizontal light, a band of light that starts to come in the sky. That is when you know that the true Fajr has started. So time of Fajr from astronomical twilight until when the sky is bright before the sun rises, that is the end, is sunrise. So that means that as soon as right just before the sun starts to rise from the horizon, that is your Fajr time. As soon as the sun rises, your Fajr becomes Qadha. Yeah. So all the way as your sun is now coming closer and closer, as soon as you've reached, suppose this is now 18 degrees below horizon, your Fajr has started. Now, as soon as the sun starts to come up, your Fajr is still valid. As soon as the sun starts to hit the horizon and you can start see the sun rising from the horizon, your Fajr becomes Qadha, right before it. That's called sunrise. So for those who weren't here before, I'm going to repeat because that's all I had prepared for today. And then we're going to, inshallah, do the quiz after this. So we have started with the book of Salat, right? So in the book of Salat, we are basically going to be spending quite a few weeks on all the different laws relating to the performance of prayers, whether those are Furada prayers or Jama'ah prayers or Friday prayers. Right? So there are 5 different types of obligatory prayers. There are the daily prayers that you call Salatul Yawmiyah that you perform on a daily basis. There's the Salat that you need to perform upon the completion of the Tawaf when you go for Hajj. There's a Salatul Ayat, which need to be performed relating to certain signs or certain events that take place, like a solar eclipse, like an earthquake, and others. Inshallah, we'll discuss that in detail in the future. Salatul Mayyat, which is called a funeral prayer, that is wajib on everyone, but if one person performs it, it's no longer wajib for everyone. And any other prayer that needs to be performed as a result of doing another, a vow. And then the missed prayers of the father. So if you have a deceased father who has qada prayers, it is wajib on the eldest son to perform those prayers, whether he performs them himself or he asks someone else to do it, right? So as soon as you make a contract with someone to say that my father had 5 years of qada namaz, can you please perform? People can do that for you. They can perform the qada namaz for your father on their behalf. As soon as they sign that contract, it becomes wajib on them to perform the salat. The daily prayers are 5, Fajr 2 rakah, Dhuhr 4 rakah, or the equivalent of Friday prayer, which is 2 units, Asr 4 units, Maghrib 3 units, Isha 4 units. But the 4 units of Asr, Maghrib, and Isha, they have to be cut to 2 if you are traveling. Maghrib and Fajr remain as they are, 2 and 3. Now, there are Nawafil Salat also, recommended prayers, which are 8 before Dhuhr, 8 before Asr. Inshallah, in the future, when we talk about the specific times for all of these prayers, we're also going to be talking about the specific times for the Nawafil prayers. When do you perform a Nawafil or the Nafil prayer for Dhuhr and Asr? We will discuss that in the future, inshallah. And we're also going to discuss so as I mentioned, we know that, okay, I'll explain that in the next slide. So the Nawafil are 8 Dhuhr, 8 Asr, 4 Maghrib, 2 for Isha, which is counted as 1 unit, and 2 units of Shaf prayer, 8 units of Salatul Nafla for Salatul Layl, 1 unit of Watr, and 2 units of Fajr. All of these are basically plus the 17 that you perform as obligatory, equal to 51. That's your total Salat. That is one of the signs of a moment. But when I talk about the time of the prayer, the time of Friday prayer starts at the beginning of midday, which is called Zawal. Zawal is what? Zawal is when the sun, as it starts rising from the sunrise, it starts rising until it gets to a point where it has reached the peak. As soon as it starts to descend, that's Zawal. That's the time of Dhuhr prayer. The time for Dhuhr and Asr prayer is shared between Zawal and sunset. In the future, we're going to learn about, even though the time is shared, there is a time of Fazilat for Dhuhr and a time of Fazilat for Isha, for Asr. What does that mean? I, as a Shia Muslim, can pray my Dhuhr and Asr namaz as soon as Zawal hits, and I'll be done for the whole day. As soon as the time for Dhuhr hits, I pray my Dhuhr and I pray my Asr, and I'm done. But according to our narrations, there is also a time that is more virtuous for Asr prayer. That's why it is better, if you're not doing Salatul Jama'ah, to split or to separate out your Dhuhr and Asr prayer. You pray your Dhuhr prayer as soon as Zawal hits, but there's a specific time that if you pray Asr in that time, you get more rewards for it. You can still pray right after Dhuhr, nothing is stopping you, but it's more virtuous time. And the same thing for Maghrib and Isha. They both share the same time from sunset until midnight, but Maghrib and Isha both have a time of Fazilat. And we inshallah are going to talk about that. As I mentioned earlier, midnight does not mean 12 o'clock. Midnight means the halfway point between sunset and sunrise, or for sunset and Fajr basically, not even sunrise. So it can be 11:35, it can be 11:40, sometimes it's 12 o'clock also, but it doesn't have to be. It's the midway point between your sunset and your Fajr. Now what happens if you have time from Zawal until sunset to pray your Dhuhr and Asr, right? What if you delay praying both of them? All the way until you only have time left to pray one of them, either Dhuhr and Asr. You have to pray Asr and Dhuhr becomes Qada. Same thing for Maghrib and Isha. Until midnight, if you have delayed both of those prayers and now you only have time to either pray Maghrib or Isha until midnight, you pray Isha as Ada and Maghrib then becomes Qada. But if you decide to delay the prayers until midnight, you have the option to pray both of them until sunrise. They don't become Qada, but you cannot use the niyyah of Ada either. You just say, I pray Fajr, I pray Maghrib 3 rakat, wajib qurbata ilallah. You don't say, I pray Maghrib 3 rakat and I do Ada of it. Remember, when you do niyyah, you have to decide that you're doing Ada or Qada. Ada means I'm praying at the prescribed time, or I'm doing qada, which means I'm making up for it because I did not pray during time. Now, if someone has a situation where they're unable to pray from midnight, from sunrise until midnight, they can also extend until Fajr. So, for people sometimes think that as soon as it hits midnight, my Maghrib and Isha become qada. They don't become qada. You have time until sunrise, but it depends on whether you had intentionally delayed it, or you had fallen asleep, or you had forgotten about it, and you realize, oh, it's midnight now. I haven't prayed my Maghrib and Isha. What do I do? You still have time to pray until Fajr. But if I intentionally delay it, then you cannot use the niyyah of ada. Why is that important? There's different rewards, right? The reward for ada is different from a reward for just praying, but not as with intention of ada. It still means you have met your obligation, but the rewards are different. Okay. So as I was explaining when the rest were coming in, then how do you determine the time of the morning prayer? So the time of the morning prayer is Fajr al-Sadiq, true for. There's two types of Fajr. There's Fajr al-Sadiq, true dawn, and there's false dawn. False dawn is not when the Fajr time hits. True dawn is when the Fajr time hits. How do you determine that? It's dependent on the concept of twilight. So in twilight, we have three types of, in astronomy, we have three types of twilights. We have civil, nautical, and astronomical. We don't have the twilight relating to the movies. That's not the twilight. So we have civil, nautical, and astronomical. So it depends on the horizon. So what does that mean? This is the horizon. This is basically what you see on the land, right? That's the flat part. That's the land. The sun is below the horizon. But even though it's below the horizon, you might still start to see some light coming through from the darkness. Is that light meaning it's sunrise? It depends. No, because there's two different types of light that comes from the horizon. There's a vertical light that comes for a few minutes and then it goes away, and there's a horizontal light. So remember, this is the horizon, right? What does that mean is that I'm standing on a flat ground, and what I see in front of me is my horizon. That's my horizon, meaning that's the flat part. Now, I cannot see the sun because naturally the sun is below that horizon. The earth isn't flat, but from my perspective, the sun is below the horizon. The sun is now starting to come close to the horizon. When do I decide when the twilight of astronomical twilight is hit? So it depends on, so that's the horizon, that's the sun, and that's the depression. Depression means below the horizon. So if I explain it here, right? So this is my horizon, this is the sun, this is the middle part, right? Astronomical twilight, which is what we're caring about, is as soon as this sun, the middle part of the sun is 18 degrees below horizon, right? Now it's going to start coming closer. The 18 will become 17, 16, 15, 14. So between 18 and 12 degrees is the time of the astronomical twilight. So that means that question was, how do I find that out, right? You don't need to know how many degrees, but sometimes what will happen is that you may not have an app that tells you the Fajr prayer in a particular area where you are, or in a town that you've gone and you don't know what the Fajr prayer is. You can find out the Fajr prayer if you just Google and write the astronomical morning twilight of this town. You will get that because nowadays astronomical information is available. So you will find out that if the astronomical time is 5:55, I just add a few minutes to it, and that's the time of Fajr. So this is how it's decided. So in our books of fiqh, obviously we don't come up. You will not find these things. But what you will find is the concept of. And if you look at the books of Islamic laws, they don't mention 12 degrees. They don't mention 18 degrees. What they mention is two things. They say that there's two types of light that starts coming from the darkness. One is a vertical column, right? Like it's like basically this light that shoots up in the sky, but it comes and then it goes away. That's not the Fajr. Then there's another light which is a horizontal band of light, right? It's like you start seeing something like this coming up. So this is what was used from the books of fiqh to decide what does that mean in terms of astronomy. So if you go to Google and you try to search for what does this vertical column mean and what does the horizontal light mean, our fuqaha were able to use astronomy to determine that this horizontal light is basically what is called astronomical morning twilight. Now, what is astronomical morning twilight? Astronomy has explained that it is anything between 12 and 18 degrees below the horizon. That's when your Fajr prayer starts. As soon as the sun hits the horizon, right before it starts rising, that's the end of Fajr prayer. Then your prayer becomes qada after that. Okay. In the future, inshallah, we're going to learn more about all of these things, but this was just an introduction to the book of Salat. As you will see that we are going to be spending quite a lot of time on Salat because it is the most important obligatory act. You know, if our Salat are not accepted, none of our actions are accepted. And if our Salat is accepted, then our other actions are accepted. So we need to really understand all the laws relating to the performance of the prayer, within the prayer, the laws relating to where you are praying, the laws relating to the dress that you're wearing while you're praying, the laws of congregation. All of these things need to be known because you don't want that your salat is batil. Because if your salat becomes batil, then it's a problem. Okay. So, yes. What about chirping birds? Oh, it's not mentioned in the books of law. Yeah. But chirping birds, it's interesting you mentioned that. So, you know how we have various different traditions that talk about the virtue of the time between Fajr and up to sunrise. And we have traditions that mention that this is a very virtuous time. That you should not go back to sleep as soon as you pray Fajr. You should stay awake until sunrise. And the reason is that it's during this time where Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is distributing rizq. He's distributing sustenance. And we have traditions that mention that when you hear these birds chirping during that time, these birds are also actually seeking sustenance from their Lord. So that's why if you wake up for Fajr, try to stay awake until sunrise and then pray and do a zikr of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and it's going to increase your sustenance. Because it's not just us, but Allah is distributing rizq for all the created things, even the birds. And they're chirping and they're speaking, but they're actually seeking sustenance from their Lord. So that question reminds me of mentioning the fadilat of that. Okay. Are we ready for the quiz? Let's do this. So the quiz I'm going to write on the message is go to slido.com and the participant code is, what is the participant code? Two 2836220. 2836220. Okay, I'm going to launch the interaction. I expect everyone to get 100% in this. And remember, guys, remember, even if everyone gets the correct mark, the leaderboard decides on who did it quicker. So remember that. So those on Zoom call can also join. The participants are joining. The interaction is open. You can either do it online or on the app. Take your time. We'll start at in 5 minutes once everyone's joined. Two 283-6220. Same as every, it's the same code. Someone called Ya Ali who has joined. We need names, guys. Who's Ya Ali? Ya Allah. So we have got how many? One, two, three, four, five, six. For now, it's one account. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. Got 12 people. Got. How many do we have here? 1, 2, 3, 4. Are you joining? You still joining? 1, 2, 3, 4. What about Jerry? Is he joining? Jerry? Are you joining? Because so everyone's gonna join from this class, right? Because I just want to make sure we got enough people. So 7, not 11, right? Okay, 7. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11. 11 plus 7, 18. So there should be 18 people who should be on. Okay. So I've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14. Need 4 more people. 14. I think it's 14 now. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14. We'll start in 3 minutes. We shouldn't be able to because the answer only gets revealed when I reveal the answer. We'll start at 9:45 in 2 minutes. Should I change it to 20 seconds? 30 seconds? No, now I can't change. I can't change now. It'll take a while. How many do we have now? 1. Asha bhai, आप भी आ जाए. Quiz कर दें आप भी. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15. We should have 18, right? Who's not? No, but they've joined as one person also in Zoom. Yeah. We've got, do we have, who do we not have? The code is 2836220. 2836220. Nawaz has not joined. Okay, it's 9. Okay, let's start. Bismillah. It's not very difficult quiz. Okay, so 94% said the right answer. 6% said please. Make sure we read the answers properly. Okay, same as before. Okay. Oh, why? Projector. Is it? Can you see the answers? Oh, so you guys can't see on the screen the answer. Oh, you can't? Oh, yeah. Should have told me before. Yeah, I think the internet is not working now. Yeah, because there's something with the Wi-Fi. I'm still on Wi-Fi, but it's stuck. Ooh, I don't want to refresh my quiz. Is it coming now? Can you see the next question? Show me what you see on the screen.
Even after refreshing.
What is the ruling of precaution? Okay, check again now. Oh, I'm refreshing now. Yes. Next one, guys. Remember, washing with water doesn't mean that you are becoming spiritually pure. Washing with water is only when you're doing khabas, meaning there's something impure on your body. That's khabas. Hadas al asghar is which requires wudu, and hadas al akbar is what requires ghusl. Meaning that there's nothing that's dirty or impure on your body, but spiritually you are requiring impurity. So I've given you a hint for the next question. It's easy. This one is easy. Remember, one finger is for length. So when you come down, it needs to be length, but the width is minimum 3. Recommended protocol. Yeah, so you use 3, but when you're coming down, how much down do you need to come? That's so it's basically you look at the length of one finger, and that's so you don't have to do all of this. It's just how much is the length of a finger as a recommended precaution. You can do front part of any part, but minimum recommended precaution is 3 fingers width, and I didn't mention length here. What's the word for ankle in the ayah? Does you remember? No. If you don't, it's fine because that usually helps. So it's kab, ilal kabain. Kabain is ankle. So that's why it's mentioned specifically. That's why I put ankle, not top of the foot. Top of the foot can be the bump on your foot. So this is a trick question, guys. This question will decide who is on the leaderboard on the top. So unlike arms and hands, your face and your hands where you have to go from top to bottom, with feet you can actually reverse, but it is better to avoid. It doesn't make it invalid. Next one. Start with you. No, you can't. It's a quiz. Sorry, not an open book exam. I'm refreshing. Can you see the answer? So najis water does not give you the leniency, even if it's forgetfulness or if you don't have knowledge. Good question. No, I don't think so, because it's carbonated. So it's not anything that's water that's required is something that is considered to be water. Now you don't find sparkling water in rivers and in oceans. It's something where you add something to it. So it's mudaf, it's added water. Yeah.
Okay.
Extreme situations is where you take water and you have to. So in extreme situations, if you are doing wudu and you get to the next part, you need to wipe. You don't have water on your hands. That doesn't mean there's a delay. The question is about a delay, not about the hands drying. So if there's a delay, muawalat, then what happens? Not about if due to excessive heat, if it dries away. Next question. This is a principle that you guys should remember. In fiqh, this is known as the principle. This is known as the principle of istishab. What does that mean? That means that if you have certainty about a previous situation, and now you have doubt about a present situation, you bring the previous certainty forward. So in this case, you are certain you are in wudu. Now you have doubt whether you have broken it. So the previous situation of certainty comes forward, and therefore you consider yourself to still be in a case of wudu. Okay. But we're almost done now. Invalidate. Remember, we're talking about invalidating, not making something impure. I'm saying the question is about invalidating wudu, not about making something impure. So I'm just looking at the answers, so giving a hint. Okay, we're done. Blood makes your body impure, but it doesn't make you have to do wudu again.
If there was a wound picture on oneself, so for example, if I have a nose, does that invalidate my wudu?
Nosebleeds, anything that's happening from internally is not considered to be impure. That's happening inside the nose or inside the mouth. So gums bleeding, you're having a nosebleed, anything that's on an external part of your skin there, if it bleeds. Remember, bleeding doesn't invalidate wudu. Bleeding makes you impure. Your wudu only becomes invalidated if you are urinating, or if you pass wind, or if you sleep. So there's a difference between making something impure and requiring something wudu again. Bleeding does not require you to do wudu again. It just makes you impure. So what that means is that now I'm in a state of wudu. I get a cut on my hand. There's blood on my body. I just clean that off. I don't need to wudu again. I just purify the body part. That's all. So there's a difference between purifying something and redoing wudu. Yeah. 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 It just requires cleaning your nose. So you just clean the impure part from your body. You don't have to redo the wudu. So there's impurity and there's reasons why you need to redo wudu are two different. There is a misconception usually people have is that if, for example, I'm in a state of wudu, I have not urinated as an example, but now my hand becomes najis because of touching wudu. I don't have to repeat my wudu. Only my hand becomes najis. I just wash it off and I purify it. My wudu remains as it is. It's only if I myself perform that action that I have to redo the wudu. So there's a difference. Yeah. 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 Yes. So again, it's about the najasa has to be wet. So when you're transferring of najasa has to happen through wetness. Now in this case, the hair of a dog would or would not would be difficult to know. But in this case, usually when it comes to dogs, if you touch them, you have to assume a level of wetness that's coming on. But if it's cats, then there's a specific ruling regarding cats that if there's three or more hair, then you can't pray in those clothes. But if you have a dog that touches your prayer clothes, then you will assume that najasa has transferred. You don't redo the wudu, you just change your clothes and purify the clothes. You are in such a state of sleep that you can't hear. So, for example, like say you take a nap. Like in certain instances, when you take like a short nap, it's like you're sleeping, but you can still hear. So there's a difference between the kind of sleep. It has to be such deep sleep where you literally can't hear anything, or you're completely unconscious. But sometimes you'll find that I've taken a nap, but like I'm half sleeping, but I'm half hearing. That doesn't invalidate it. It happens at times. So it's deep sleep where you've literally just gone. I know first and third might seem similar, but it doesn't matter because they're both wrong. Again, principle of istishab. By default, we are always not in a state of wudu, right? So now we know that we don't know which one came first. Did I start my wudu and then I broke it, or I broke it and then started my wudu? So I don't know whether I'm in a state of wudu or not. The default position is that I'm always never in a state of wudu. So you have to basically perform wudu again. Leaderboard you guys can see on the screen? Or you can't even see leaderboard? You can. You can afterwards, right? Oh. Last question. If someone completes wudu, right, and the limbs were not purified, they're doubting. That means that now you've already prayed. Now you doubt that your limbs were my limbs pure or not, right? Your prayer remains valid. So this is only talking about if a person completes wudu and then doubts whether the limbs are properly purified from impurity before wudu, right? So your wudu remains valid. So you can forget the fact that you have to repeat the wudu. You don't have to do the wudu again, but you have to purify your limbs. No, but the question is not saying that there's certainty that they had purified their limbs or not. So yeah, so assuming that they were impure. So you started your wudu and you had not purified your limbs, right? Okay, properly purified or purified is the same thing. There's no improperly purified. So consider it to be the same, whether I clean them, purified them or not. The point is that I don't have to do my wudu again. But when I do my wudu for the next prayer, I need to clean my lips. But when it comes to doubts about after prayer, you ignore those doubts without repeating the wudu. Are we ready? Yeah. Islam